I think I'm undergoing ego death. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Parking Lot Philosophy, the only show filmed in a car. Um, yeah, I've had a rough week. Let's start with that. I kind of crashed out earlier this week. Uh, really, kind of a jumble of things going on for me. And part of all of this, I have not actually recorded. I'm happy I have a little bit of a backlog in this show. I have not recorded an episode at all this week, so I'm so sorry. Haven't really been updating you on it, but I had applied to a job, was pretty happy about it, did not get it, didn't even get an interview, and you might be thinking, okay, bub, welcome to 2026. The job that I applied to is right over there, as in right across the hall. Didn't get an interview, got a generic response, or a generic rejection letter from my own building, my own department. Really felt bad. It made me feel really disrespected. Really not good. Add that, I have a ton of work on my plate right now. The job I applied to, which again, we're in a car, but right over there, if this were an office, it would be right over there. I am the interim for that. So I'm doing my full-time job. I'm taking part of that job and I'm doing it. Had a bunch of updates for that. So not really a great combo to not even, I thought I'd get a pity interview. I didn't think I'd get the job, even though I'm doing the job. So a little bit of a crash out there. I entered into this video contest. Didn't do well in that either. Anyway, the point being, I've had a rough week. Everything kind of piling on top of each other. And I felt very, I don't know, like everything who I am. I consider myself a good communicator. I consider myself a great asset to this school. I consider myself a good creator, all of those things came kind of toppling down, and I really just didn't know who I am. I didn't understand it, didn't know what was going on, didn't know why I was feeling this way, so overwhelmed. And what kind of came to mind is, in psychology, your ego is your identity, kind of yourself. And I was like, okay, this must be ego death. I've heard the phrase before. I wondered if that's what it was. So I did a bunch of research on what ego death is, figured out that's not what it is. I took some notes. Something that helps kind of calm me down is oftentimes writing things down or researching areas. I think it just kind of helps to have something to focus on. So ego death is a loss of self-identity in a meditative or serene way. So you might kind of forget a little bit of I am not the identity that I make for myself in society, but rather I exist within the universe. I'm a part of the universe. That was the big thing. It was all very meditative, very actually good for you. And one of the analogies was it's like you're waking up from a dream and you can kind of feel that you are tangibly there. What I am going through is actually ego threat. Sorry, the car turned off. It's fine. What I am going through is ego threat, which is a threat to an individual's ego causing a defensive response as either anger or reluctance. There was a lot more than that. However, the thing that I've been feeling is really angry, really disrespected, as if I'm being personally attacked. But rather, it's not that I'm being personally attacked, but my personality is what's under attack. And so when this happens to the brain, your ego is really what kind of motivates you throughout the day and kind of drives you as a human. It's like your engine. And if you think about it, if a car doesn't have an engine, you can't go anywhere. And so your brain is trying to defend you when ego threat happens, because the whole driving force, the whole motor for the car is about to give out. So it's gonna give all of its energy and expend all of its energy trying to make sure that the car still works. So you get defensive, you get reluctant, you get reluctant. And those are things that, I'm kind of feeling. It's like, well, if I'm doing the job that someone else is getting hired to do, why can't they do it when they get here? I'm angry at the person who got hired. Don't even know them, don't even know who it is yet, just know it's not me. And I shouldn't be angry at them. It doesn't make sense to be. It is not their fault. They were looking for a job and they found a job. But yes, all these things layered together with all the other things going on in my life and all the other stresses and all the other things, and I couldn't handle it. So I kind of crashed out. But part of this was another principle that I kind of learned about through ego death and ego threat. Also, technically, an identity crisis is what this is called. Sorry, I skipped a line, but an identity crisis, according to this guy named Erik Erikson, is a period of deep reflection and examination about various aspects of the self. So I thought that was interesting because he frames what normally a person would say you're having an identity crisis. You would not think of it as a reflective period. However, I've really been trying to think about it after seeing that quote. Is trying to go, okay, how can I reflect on what's going on? I'm not my job. I think that's the number one thing. I am not my job. My identity also is not just the things I work on. It's, I'm a husband, I'm a person, I'm a nerd. I mean, I'm nerding out right now. So it's all the things that cannot be taken away from me just because I got a rejection letter. But the other important thing I wrote down was about self-concept, which is a term I kept seeing in ego threat and ego death and all of that, which is a collection of beliefs about oneself, and the heart of it is, who am I? And I kind of went back to my journal and I asked myself, who am I? What am I? And I've been using, my one I made. And so before I fully crashed out, I was kind of asking myself, who am I? Why do I do these things? And a little bit of, what makes me me? Because that is a really interesting and important question. The part that I kept going back to, and I think what really made me angry, was this concept of not even something that I label as my personality, but rather something I often hear from other people when they describe me, which is I'm young talent, or I'm doing more work than I'm getting paid for, or we're so grateful to have you. And these were all the things I'm writing down about who I am. The problem with these statements is they fed into the ego threat, where I'm like, okay, so I'm talented, I'm happy, or they're happy to have me here. With ego threat, you're angry, you're defensive. And so my question is, okay, if I'm all these good traits, why would they not even write me a personalized response rejection? Why wouldn't they just say, hey, Elias, thank you for applying, we're not going to go with you. Instead, they sent me the generic rejection. Really hurt. So I was feeding into this ego threat, this attack on my personality. This was before I kind of wrote about the things, because again, I was crashing out. I was 100% crashing out. And so then the very next day, more worse things happened. That was when I was told that one of the reasons they likely did not hire me, now this is speculation, but one of the reasons they likely did not hire me was because I would then be leaving this position that I'm currently in, which would then make this position someone, or a new search for a new person, and they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to have to just more or less shift someone over. And I was like, Anyway, so then I crashed out. Don't worry about this side, but I crashed out. So I always end my journals and I end these videos by saying bye for now. It's always something I've done because I never want to leave something permanently. That's why I say for now. But this is the first journal entry I've done in years where I've added a definite ending. I said just bye because I was so mad. But I wrote, it's time to hang up the... I literally wrote 2 sentences. I mean, you can see that I wrote practically nothing on this one. Time to hang up the cape. I don't know who I've been writing this for. Sure as hell not going to read this myself. Definitely a crash out. And then I drew a bunch of sticky note drawings. So yeah, I crashed out. I've had a little bit of a tough week undergoing all of these different things, but I don't know. I wanted to update the podcast. I don't know what I'm going to do. The first thing I thought when I was kind of crashing out, after I wrote this journal, was I should just delete this podcast because I was like, what's the point? Because one of the reasons why I made this podcast was because I thought it'd be a fun experience. I could try doing something a little bit different. And I don't know, when you feel like your personality is under attack, it's like I don't want to do anything. I don't want to, none of it. But I think coming out of it, I'm in a metamorphosis right now. I was already feeling this way last week. I think that's part of it. I was already feeling like something's got to change in my life. And then this all happened, and that really right now is a big catalyst for me. I need to change. I need to be, I'm going from the caterpillar. I need to turn into a butterfly. So I'm going to make my chrysalis. I'm going to evolve, I guess. I'm going to change. Anyway, I've been reading more. I've been reading, this is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Rediscovering the Archetypes of the Mature Masculine. I'll talk more deeply about this later. But one of the big things of this book is talking about transitioning from being a boy to a man, and how that transition has kind of disappeared in modern day. It's really cool, really interesting read. But one of the lines that really stuck out as I'm reading this, kind of going through this transition, is new life, including new psychological life, is always fragile. When we feel this new energy manifesting within us, we need to move to protect it because it's going to be attacked. I thought that was a crazy line with everything that I'm feeling. I was like, that's interesting, but it makes sense because I feel so fragile. I feel so confused as I'm kind of, I don't know, figuring out where I am. And so one of the things is, I think in all of this thinking and all of these, these changes that I'm going through mentally, I think I need to be careful. I need to protect myself, and yeah, I'm gonna keep making videos. Anyway, there was a lot to unpack here, but anyway, peace. Bye for now.